I want to keep running with this line of thought, and I want to actually humble myself and apologize because I can sense myself getting a little bit bitter as I talk about like different professionals, and it's really no one's place to judge anyone or anything, because you can say that all in this life. I think it's actually there's a word in India called ahimsa, I think, and that means non-injury to any being. But if you actually take non-injury to any being to the furthest extent, I think there's a people in India called Jaina people, and they really actually live this idea of harm to nothing or no one, and some to the extent that maybe some of them would even allow, according to Osho, at times in past, allow a bed to be infested with fleas and bed bugs and feed on a person's very body, because they don't want to deprive the bed bugs of the sustenance and nutrition of feeding on a body. That would sound extreme, but actually, if you take things to the logic extent and you have like faith and you really mean something, it would actually amount to stuff like that. And that's just because as part of this human being, this existence, we can't entirely draw existence and further existence without both benefiting and harming others. Try as we may, we will always, to a certain degree, harm and benefit other people. So I've talked about different professionals, but I've actually had professionals, even though I've experienced marginalization, probably from a combination of my own naivety, impropriety, some a little bit of giftedness, but then maybe some of my own challenges, socially and personally, to award me certain diagnosis that can be appreciated as an ignoble title, for intensive purposes. And so I can say that I didn't entirely. I may have brought a degree of that on myself, not entirely. I think if you see a young, no, I got that diagnosis when I was very young. I was an adult, but I still actually wasn't in my 20s. I think I was an adult, but so I was technically a teenager and an adult, because I still had a teen next to my name, but I was yet of the age of majority and could vote, though I could not drink. But I think if you see a young person on that hard of times, like you see a young person homeless, or they're actually something has troubled them to the extent that they've achieved the attention of a person calling themselves a professional, or let's say they drop out of school or something like that, or they don't make it, they don't matriculate to college. In the past, not going to college or to trades would be detrimental. It's not, I don't think it necessarily has to be a setback now, but at least if they say they dropped out of school, or they didn't land in some form of employment, or maybe they were incarcerated, or they had a mental diagnosis at a very young age, like say a teenager yet not in their 20s, an adult yet not in their 20s, you could say that maybe they didn't manage something, but that would constitute a failure, a cascading failure, a compounding failure, not the least of which people who are supposed to love and care for them would have to play a role into what could land them in that place. So I don't mean to pass responsibility, because part of being an adult is to set responsibility. But in my own situation, I would have to say that some of my experience at a young age would have to reflect more than myself, whether that be educators or friends and family, employers, whatnot. Something wasn't coalescing or harmonizing to give a person just a simple footing, because I always had a work ethic. Like I said in this video, before I graduated the first semester of 8th grade, I already had a job, and I didn't stop working to the present day. And I would have been willing probably to do anything that would have been a viable and enjoyable, or at least respectable occupation from that point to now. But yeah, I paid different penalties and also subsidized different lifestyles of different people, such as professionals. But I meant to say that within that, you had some professionals who actually took a stance for me, because I had overcome a lot and had a stable track record as an adult and as a person and as a citizen within a lot of that. And a couple professionals actually recognized that, and they supported me when I got my CDL, because my CDL required support from a professional. And so because of that, I think and I don't mean to be violating my own privacy by sharing this, but all I meant to say is that I've actually had professionals step up for me and to some whatever extent vouch for me with their own. You could say that it would take some of their own maybe license or credibility as a professional themselves to support me in something as arduous as taking on the responsibility of being a professional driver, and how much really responsibility and liability that might actually even be. You can't say that's more liability and responsibility than they had, because part of their responsibility is authorizing a person to do that type of work. So that's still responsibility and liability, but yeah, it's an incredible amount of responsibility and liability as a professional driver. But I meant to say that I've had support from professionals, and that might be actually some of the real work of a professional, is to amount to a professional, have some of the background of understanding what a person may be capable of and not, and then supporting that person to be healthy in the first place, but also to undertake certain challenges and what type of oversight and authorization that would take. That's part of the work of a professional. So I by no means can judge anyone, anyhow, anything, not the least of which professionals. And all of what we do can amount to injuring ourselves and others and benefiting ourselves and others. And if we're graceful, that can amount to something beautiful as we manage it and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, recover from those mistakes, and become better for that, and also make other people better for us becoming better, and accepting the different mercies such as lessons. But there are different contradictions and ambivalences. And when I was working as a professional, I met some professionals that, like, so you imagine, okay, so my understanding of a professional is you have 70 people who are beautiful yet less than 5 feet tall on your hands at once, and you're going through traffic, keeping them safe within traffic, but also safe within themselves, because even the smallest of which, like say a kindergartner, they get to slapping another person and they can near about poke another person in the eye and injure and disable that person for a lifetime just with their very fingers as a kindergartner. So that's how much multitasking and care a person needs to do to transport children as a school bus driver. Now you have 70 of those. You have 70 beautiful yet also juvenile, naive, impressionable, outstanding, intelligent, funny, but also maybe a little bit mischievous or angry. You have so much going on. That's one round, and you have that 3 times in a row. So you have that 3 times, 3 groups of 70 of less than 5, and then maybe you have a field trip in the middle of the day where you took on another 70 plus a few adults, and then you do the same thing in the evening for 3 more rounds of 70 less than 5 foot tall beautiful people, 70 at a time, 3 times in a row, and then you go back in the evening and you take about another 20. Now this time they're over 5 feet tall, but they're no as beautiful and impressionable and delicate and sensitive, and you take them, the 20 of them, or maybe the 30 or 40 of them, home in also different traffic, but also different social economic environments, and you deliver them safely in a day. And then you go to bed right about maybe 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because it's now the winter and you're trying to avail yourself of the opportunity to make as much as you can, because you still have to make as much as you can. So you wake up at about 3:30 in the morning and you make it out to the base about maybe 40 miles across town, because the traffic isn't so bad at that hour of the morning, but so you make it there by 4 a.m. and then you start warming up the buses for the other drivers that are going to be arriving at about maybe 5:30 to start their day, so the buses can be warm, and you make sure that there's no problem with the buses starting for the students that have to get to school. That's a little bit of my understanding of a professional. But now you're not a professional yet, but you're operating as a professional. You do that you cut your teeth for about 10 years, 15 years, and now you're a professional, and you go up to someone like that. So hey John, I heard you've been working here for 15 years. This is my first day. Do you have any pointers, just so I don't make any mistakes? Yeah, so I got a good thing going on here, so please don't fuck it up for me. And there's also like a gas pump up there, and if you wouldn't lollygag, I'd appreciate that, because I still have a wife to get home to, especially also even in the midday break. I try to get home to her on time, so please don't fuck off any of that, because it's really no prisoners in life, and there's no such thing as halfway crooks. So yeah, that's my advice for you. That's what it sounds like for a professional. Or if it had been like maybe a woman, she'd say, oh yeah, oh, don't worry about it, you'll be okay. And then she's going back to him like, damn it, man. So you see, they're always hiring these rookies, and you know, he asked me this or that, man. I don't think that dude's gonna make it. And then so that means that by in about another 4 months, he's gonna be out of here, and that's right about Christmas time. And I'm gonna be training somebody. And I told them I'm trying to go on vacation with my family this year because you did this to me 5 years in a row, and so I don't want to be training anyone around Christmas time because you got. So that's how a professional is thinking. But they're not trying to